My name is Luis Santos. I am a senior at Southern Wesleyan University. I am majoring in business and concentrations of management and entrepreneurship. So my project was regarding on the impact of deferred action for childhood arrivals on youth, also known as DACA. So get started with that. So what is DACA? DACA is basically an executive order that was passed in 2012. This program was signed by our former President Barack Obama. It also was possible to happen because of the constant activism of the young immigrants who felt that they needed some sort of help or opportunity to be able to be successful. What DACA is, it's essentially a temporary work permit. It must be renewed every 2 years, and it gives the recipient a social security card. They also have to pay a fine of $495 when they apply, and also every time they renew. So it does not give them legal status, just the ability to work legally and be here legally, and it gives them protection from deportation. So if they unfortunately go through an immigration raid, then they can't be deported back because they have that permit that allows them to be here legally. And then a lot of people ask regarding the immigrants and undocumented immigrants, like, why don't you just apply for citizenship? Well, they can't. You're here legally, you're here legally. The only way that you can apply for citizenship is if you have a close relative, your parents, that can sponsor you to apply for citizenship, or if you get married to a U.S. citizen, and then they are sponsoring you to become a resident, and then later on a citizen. Other than that, there's no other way. You're basically undocumented. And so that's why I wanted to address that, so you guys wouldn't be wondering, that question throughout the project. So the benefits of DACA, like I mentioned, it gives you protection against deportation. It's a work permit that comes with a social security card. And with that social security card, you can apply to get a driver's license. The driver's license is also a two-year license instead of a 5 or 10-year license that normal U.S. citizens get. And you have to renew that every 2 years too, as well as the work permit. It gives you the ability to pass background checks when you're applying for jobs. You pass E-Verify, and here in South Carolina, it is a law that employees must pass E-Verify. And so this essentially gives you higher job opportunities, or the recipients higher job opportunities. It gives you the ability to give back or be resourceful to your families. And then last but not least, it gives you a pathway to get an education, higher education, go to college and universities and stuff like that. So there are 7 guidelines that you must go through in order to qualify for this program. The first one is that you have to be under the age of 31 whenever the executive order was signed, which was in 2012. You'd have to come to the U.S. before reaching your 16th birthday. So if you came at 16.5, you wouldn't be able to qualify. You'd have to continuously lived in the U.S. ever since 2007, so you couldn't have gone out of the country. You'd have to have no legal status, meaning you'd have to be undocumented in order to qualify for this program. Also, you would have to be in school or attending school or have obtained a high school diploma or GED, or served in the armed forces in order to also qualify for this program. And last but not least, no types of felonies. You'd have to go through a background check, and where they check all your criminal records, and so they make sure that you're good to go through. And then after those guidelines, then you do qualify. And then the process, like I mentioned, you have to pay a fine, $495, and then you go. They send you a letter, and then it's a biometrics appointment. And then you get the letter, and then you go to the immigration center. There's one in Spartanburg, Greer, and then you go and they take your fingerprints, and then they put you in the system as being here legally. So who are the DACA recipients? The DACA recipients are the children, or the people who can apply for this, are the children who were brought by their parents at a very young age. A lot of them were little kids, some were babies, months old, that came here illegally a long time ago. According to the Pew Research Center, who is a nonpartisan organization that does a lot of research regarding many different types of topics, they estimated that in 2010 there was approximately 1 million undocumented youth under the age of 18. So like I said, some of these people were brought at a very young age, and a lot of them are attending our local high schools, or our local community high schools. Some grew up going kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, and high school, and then once they graduate high school, then they become undocumented because they have no sense of protection anymore. They become adults, and so they basically have to face out in the real world being undocumented, and that's really, really challenging because it basically means that you don't exist in the country, you're not in the system. So when you, even driving, you don't have a license, but you know, I've personally experienced somebody say, a police officer say to one of my close friends, you know, why don't you just get a license? You know, you're like 25, just get a license. Well, he can't get a license, but he has to drive, he has to go to work, he has to do his stuff. But you know, it's not that he doesn't want to get a license, he can't. And so a lot of these people, once graduating high school, have to experience that, and that's very, very tough on them. Personally, I am a DACA recipient myself. Like I said, I'm here at SWU studying business now. Originally, I'm from Michoacan, Mexico, which is like a really southern state in Mexico, almost like the South Carolina of the U.S. My parents decided to bring me to the States when I was 9 in 2004. I got here knowing no English. It was like a whole new world to me. You know, even the trip, it was kind of fun, but I had no idea where I was going. You know, I was 9 years old. I was on a bus. I took another bus. I got here in 2.5 days, and but I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Of course, you know, I don't blame my parents. You know, they did it for the best for me, and. So yeah, I'm deeply thankful for them, and then for them deciding to bring me here. I think the most challenging adaptation for me here personally was learning the language and also settling into the culture. You know, it's a whole new world, like I said, and so that was very hard, but it wasn't impossible. I speak some English now, so I'm good on that. How has DACA impacted me? Basically, it gave me the ability to be someone, or to dream, to become somebody. I was able to get my license. Even though I have to renew it every 2 years, I do it, and I'm getting a license. You know, that's what matters. It gave me ability to work legally. You know, I could actually go and apply at any American restaurant or any employer and pass E-Verify. So, you know, it's given me, like I mentioned, higher job opportunities. It gave me the ability to go to school, which is why I'm here now. I did start at Tri-County for 1.5 years, transferred here at SWU because SWU opened their doors to me, and I'm really, really thankful for that happened. What if DACA was terminated? Well, basically my most important tool towards a successful future would be taken away from me. You know, going from being protected from deportation, and then if it was terminated, then I would become undocumented again, meaning that there would be a deportation order on me, and they have everything about me. You know, they have, like I mentioned, they have fingerprints, social security card, bank account stuff, because I use the social security card for the bank account. You know, where I work, because I use the social security card, so they know everything about me. So if it was to end, it's basically, you know, like it's gonna be really tough. I'm sorry, I can't talk. So unfortunately, it did happen. Past couple of months, a few weeks ago, September 5th to be more specific, the Trump administration actually decided to rescind the DACA. They put the program on hold for 6 months. They turned it over to Congress and pretty much told them you need to find a permanent solution within the 6-month period, or else if you don't, then deportation order will be on the 800 or almost 1 million recipients that are under the program, myself included. So Attorney General Jeff Sessions was the one who announced, and that's exactly how we started. That was a really bad day for a lot of us, especially for me. He basically started off with saying, "Good morning, I'm here today to announce that the program known as DACA that was effectuated under the Obama administration is being rescinded." So that was really, really tough on this group of people, and myself included. So I originally, being a DACA recipient is what motivated me to do this project, regarding this topic. And it's crazy how things work out, because I could have actually done these workshops last semester, but I procrastinated a lot, and so I didn't. And but it's crazy how things work out, because I ended up doing the workshops after the rescindment announcement, so it was actually more relevant to spread awareness, let the people know how this topic is actually really important and is affecting the lives of nearly 1 million recipients who are under the DACA program. So I did workshops, like I said, but the two main ones that I actually tested or experimented on was one here at SWU. I did one here at Southern Wesleyan, and then I did one at Furman University. I did one at SWU. That's a picture of us there, and the general contents that I covered was like a brief background immigration into the U.S. Basically, what was the major cause that caused that chain migration into the U.S. A lot of people coming in. I covered the amnesty in 1986 under the Reagan administration that gave a pathway to citizenship to nearly 3 million undocumented people. After that, a lot of people started to come here hoping that something like that would happen again. It hasn't happened, so that's why there's so many people here now compared to 1986. According to research that I don't have up there, but I did on my paper, there's roughly 11 to 12 million undocumented people here in the United States. I went on to cover general information about DACA. Basically, I showed them the guidelines that I just showed you, but I also went in more detail about how, all the additional charges, everything that they have to go through. I covered DACA and employment, how DACA has helped employment, get these people more jobs that they actually fit in. A lot of these people, after graduating high school, even though they're really smart, were working on with low-paid jobs because they didn't have any documentation. Some of them were working McDonald's, that's a job, but a lot of these people had higher qualities than to be working there, but they couldn't get to them for those jobs because of their documentation. So DACA greatly helped these people. I did show a report on my paper of a research that was done out of I think it was 1,300 recipients, DACA recipients, and I think 60% of them responded that they moved to jobs with higher or better job conditions, jobs that provided health care, some sort of benefits to them, and that they were also getting paid the legal wage. That also went back to cover the myth of when people say these people are taking their jobs. These people are not taking their jobs. It's the employers that are taking their jobs because of one simple reason: power. These employers take advantage of these people and work them countless hours a week, 6 to 7 hours a week, and not pay them enough. Not pay them the overtime that they deserve. And they prefer to employ them rather than a U.S. citizen, because a U.S. citizen can actually go and complain. They can go to the Department of Labor and complain about it, and then the employer will get sued or shut down. And so I covered all that information. And then DACA and education. Even though it might sound as a positive thing, it is a positive thing, but there's one catch. If a DACA recipient wanted to go to school, today Clemson, I wanted to go to Clemson. If they want to go to a public school, they have to pay out-of-state tuition. Even though I'll use myself as an example. I really wanted to go to Clemson. I'm thankful to be here at school, but Clemson was my choice. But I thought when DACA happened, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna go to Tri-County and then I'm gonna go to Clemson. So I find out that if you're DACA, that you have to pay out-of-state tuition, even though you're local, you're from the state. I went to Daniel High School, I went to Edwards Middle School, and Central Elementary, that I would need to pay out-of-state tuition, and on top of that, I wouldn't get any type of financial aid. No scholarships, state or federal, nothing. So basically paying everything out of your pocket, but then twice as much as your normal U.S. citizen. I have a lot of friends who I grew up with, best friends, a lot of American friends who I consider best friends that went on to Clemson, that I grew up with, and they're making it. I'm happy for them, but because of immigration policies, and I can't do that. But I'm really thankful to be here at school. That's a fact. And then I covered potential new legislations regarding this program, DACA. Some of the potential legislations, I think the main one right now is the DREAM Act of 2017, which it's like a 10-year process. It's actually a legal, like a permanent legislation, not just an executive order, so it would be a law, and it's like a 10-year process towards citizenship, or actually residency and citizenship, which is better than nothing. It's better than DACA or having to renew it every 2 years. So I think that's the main one that they are mostly talking about right now, to be a replacement of DACA. So I covered that on my presentation as well. So that's a picture of me at Furman when I did my second workshop, where I, presented. I also created a survey, one that was a pre-workshop survey, and then a post-workshop survey. And the survey basically asked 4 main questions twice, before and after. They were number 1 was the general knowledge about DACA, and then in-state college education provisions for the undocumented people, general college education provisions for the undocumented people, and also employment options for these undocumented individuals. I asked those 4 same questions before and after, so I could measure if my workshops were in fact effective or not. And then, in addition, at the end, the post-workshop, I did ask 3 questions regarding the workshop in general. And as you see here on the screen, how likely is that you would recommend this workshop to a family or friend? Out of a scale out of 1 to 10, the average response was a 9.23, and this is a response from 42 people that actually responded to the survey and returned it back. So it seemed to be that it was successful. Also, the rating of the workshop, we got an average response of 4.48, which is close to excellent, as you can see there. And then also expectation of the workshop from the individuals who attended. We got an average response of 4.48, meaning that the workshop, in fact, it did meet their expectations. So now we're going to move on to the survey questions that I asked. Basically, how we measured the change was that we took the responses from the pre-workshop survey and then the post-workshop survey, and we measured how many levels of learning they increased. So the answer choices were extremely confident regarding each question. So the questions up there and the scales on the side. So the levels of learning were extremely confident, unconfident, unsure, and confident, and then extremely confident. And then this graph here shows it shows all of the 42 respondents here. And so this is the amount of people here, and then the levels of learning here. Basically, the people here in 0, that does not mean that they didn't learn anything. It simply means that they may have came into the workshop already knowing or feeling confident about the topic or the question, and they simply didn't learn much after the workshop. So this can be explained because a lot of the Furman attendees were people that I knew or had some sort of knowledge, and I'm pretty sure they took the survey. So some of them know more than me, so they probably know a lot. But if you can see here, a lot of people actually increased 3 levels of learning, meaning that they could have gone to the workshop feeling confident, and then they left feeling extremely confident. So that's how we meant. That's what the graph is essentially showing there. Same thing for question 2. It's just a different question. In-state college education provision. I actually did have somebody who I took away their knowledge, I guess. I don't know how that happened, but somebody left feeling a little bit less educated.
Now you know how a faculty member feels.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that, but whoever that was. So yeah, but as you can see that a lot of people learned increase their knowledge 2 levels or higher. Like I said, they might have gotten there confident and left confident, or vice versa for this person. but yeah, so question 3 asked about the general college provisions, education provisions for the undocumented. Same thing, big change here. You can see that the majority of the people learned 2 levels or higher, or increase in knowledge 2 levels or higher. So the success of the workshop was clearly noticeable here. Same thing for question 4. We see that a lot of people learned or increased their levels of knowledge by 2 or more. And so that was really positive in regard of the outcome of the survey, that we actually met our objectives, in delivering the information and spreading awareness. I did conduct the hypothesis test, and I'm not sure if a lot of you guys know what a hypothesis test is. It's kind of like statistics. I think I can give you a quick example of what a hypothesis test essentially is. For example, there's 4 siblings, and then their parents tell them, hey, you guys have to do the dishes every night. And so the 4 siblings get in a group, and then they go like, okay, we have to make a deal here. Each one of us is going to do the dishes at different days of the week, and so, but they're going to put their names in a bowl, and they're going to draw out the name, and then whoever's name is drawn out, they're going to do the dishes that night. And then so the older brother, it's the 3rd night, and the older brother still hasn't done the dishes, and so the little brothers are like, okay, something's happening here. How come he hasn't done the dishes yet? So they go on and they do like the math, and they find out that the probability, assuming that the older brother is not cheating, that the probability of that happening is 42%. I did the math already. That is 42%. So they're like, okay, he has some sort of a chance, 42%. So we'll let it swing by. Well, then day 12 comes, and the older brother still has not done the dishes. And so the little brothers are like, okay, something's going on here. Let's do the math and see how much, what are his chances of this happening. I did the math again. It's 3.2%. And okay, they're like, okay, something is happening here that's not supposed to be happening. He's cheating. So the main statement here was that if it's true, then if the statement is true, it's called the null hypothesis, and then the alternative hypothesis is if it's cheating. Okay, so whenever they did the math for the first time, when it was in the 4th night, he had a 42% chance. So then they stick to the null hypothesis that in fact it's happening. But whenever it's the 12th night and then they do the math and he only has a 3.2% chance, then they reject the null hypothesis that it's actually happening, and they favor the alternative hypothesis that in fact he is cheating. So that's kind of, I'm not sure if you understood me, but that's kind of the how I did mine. So basically, I used the central limit theorem because we had a sample size greater than 30. Like I said, we have 42 people that responded to the survey. And then the null hypothesis would be that there is no change in understanding, or that the workshop did not in fact deliver any knowledge to the attendees. And the alternative hypothesis would be that the workshops did in fact deliver the information that we were supposed to deliver. And then after conducting all the, after I did all the math, I concluded that, hang on, let me find a little piece of paper. So I did the math from the data that I had from the entire survey of the 42 respondents, and I had a rejection period. So basically my rejection period was 1.645. And I took the z-score from, I'm not sure if you're following, but if you are, I took the z-score of like the average for question 1. I took the z-score, and basically if my z-score was under 1.645, then I would fail to reject the null hypothesis, meaning that my workshop was in fact not successful. But from the entire 4 questions, my answers were like really, really high. For example, for number 1, I got a 9.99, which is really, really high compared to 1.645, which means that I was able to reject the null hypothesis and favor the alternative hypothesis, which favored the workshop in delivering the information that it was successful. Same thing for question 2, I got 13.09, which is really, really high compared to 1.645. Question 3, I got 16.3 as my z-score, which is also higher than 1.645. And then for question 4, I got 14.25, which is also higher than 1.645. So for all the questions, I was able to reject the null hypothesis favoring the alternative hypothesis, and which means that my workshop, in fact, did deliver the information for the attendees. Okay, enough of the confusion. Conclusion: the workshops, like I said, I tested it, and so the workshop, in fact, did provide the information necessary for the attendees, covering general information on immigration, DACA and employment, DACA and education. It helped the workshop meet its objectives in terms of delivering the information. If continued, if my workshops are continued, not just here at school in Furman, but also in other areas or with other groups of people, like I said, I did all the tests, so it results that the workshops would continue to be successful in terms of delivering the information. And lastly, this group of people, of individuals, actually, they deserve more than just DACA or to be labeled as this group of people. It's more personal, personally speaking. These are lives of people. Like I said, a lot of them were brought here as little babies. They have no knowledge of where they're going, and then they grow up with, somebody, like one of these little babies could have grown up with someone else who was born here. Best friends grow up together, and when time comes to get a license, to go to college or get a job, he can't get a license, he can't get a job, he can't tour colleges his junior year of high school or senior year of high school like his best friend is doing, just because of where he was born. And I think that's really, really unfair. So, like I said, these people deserve the justice and liberty that was promised to them as they were growing up. As this great country has promised to them ever since some of them were in kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, and high school. So there's that. Throughout my project, I had some really cool experiences. I was able to go to DC in one day. I got into I'm really scared of heights, but unfortunately. I had to get on 4 different planes in one day. That's 24 hours, and I was freaking out. But I took a trip to DC. I was funded by the Hispanic Alliance of Greenville. I got to meet with a lot of congressmen. Some of them I didn't get a chance to take a picture, but here you see Dick Durbin. He is actually one of the co-sponsors of the DREAM Act of 2017, along with our Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. You see here a picture of myself and 2 other people that I don't know, with Luis Gutierrez, who is a really, really strong advocate for the immigration population. I was also featured in a magazine in Greenville where I got the opportunity to tell my story. And so that was pretty cool. I was famous for a month. That was cool. I had people come up to me and be like, "Is that you?" And I was like, "Yes, that's me." So that was kind of cool. I was also on the Greenville News, where I actually got the opportunity to share my future goals and what I want to do in the future. Some more pictures. Luis Gutierrez here. That's Senator Lindsey Graham. They were actually holding a press conference that day, and you can see like part of my head over there. They put me in the back because I was a little bit taller, but it was actually pretty cool because since he's from South Carolina, they wanted us, South Carolina. Like there was a lot of groups that went from different states, and we were representing South Carolina, so they put us right behind them, so that was pretty cool, and like we were on national TV, and so that was pretty exciting. This is the group of people that I went with. So that's me, blue pants for Southern West End. Acknowledgements, first of all, my honors advisor, Professor Tinnerman, she was really, really great. There was times that I really wanted to give up throughout this project. I was like, okay, this is not for me, I'm just done, I'm stressed. She really, really helped me a lot. Former honors director, Professor Emily Germain, she's seen me cry, and that's I went up to her office, told her all my stuff. She's helped me a lot. She's probably crying over there. She always cries when she hears me talk. Even like a couple hours ago, I was practicing, she was bawling. And
not true.
Honors Interim Director, Dr. Darrell Couch, he gave me the opportunity to complete this project. And then as well as my committee, Dr. Lee, Dr. Horn, and Dr. Aviles, who I don't think they're here right now, but they were a lot of help. And of course, Southern Wesleyan University for letting me come here and earn my degree, even though, my documentation status, since they're a private school, they don't really go by the state law, so I don't have to pay out-of-state tuition and all that. I did earn an academic scholarship here at school, which is why I'm a senior now. I'm graduating here in the next 3 weeks, like you said. So really, really thankful for school and and you guys for being here and listening this past 25 minutes, or maybe a little bit over that. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Thank you.